time to put Mavis first. I'm here for you.
This is me trying to be single at 38. And to start over.
Being a roommate, it's a special kind of friend. I think we should breathe together.
Did you have Shake Shack today?
Wait, was that go time? Okay, all right, sorry. I was too into it. Should do a show.
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love, when you want, where you want, however you want. Me, I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, I'm Brian Brushwood, but more importantly, Bryce, why was I so engaged with this trailer that I failed to open the show properly?
Well, there's a lot of answers that could be, but that was a trailer for Survival of the Thickest that is coming to Netflix July 13th. Mavis is a 38-year-old and trying to rebuild her life, which is difficult when you're single and plus size and a person of color. It stars Michelle Buteau, who also wrote the book that this is based on of the same name. It looks interesting. That's July 13th on Netflix.
Is it a Friday, July 13th?
On the 13th?
Yeah.
Well, we can find out. It looks like that's a Thursday, actually.
A Thursday. Okay, now I'll remember it. Shall we do the primary target then?
Yes.
All the usual suspects are reporting that Warner Brothers Discovery is in talks to license library titles from HBO to Netflix. I think Deadline was the first one to break this. It wouldn't be the first. Some of HBO's back catalog was licensed to Amazon. If you remember, back in 2014, you can get The Wire on Prime Video for a while there. Recent titles like Westworld have been licensed to free and ad-supported services like Roku and Tubi. This new deal is believed to be non-exclusive, though. So the titles would stay on Max. This is not we're moving Westworld off to Pluto or Roku or whatever. This is... we would let, I don't know, old episodes of Sopranos show on Netflix, but they would still be on Max. Also, both Variety and other sources say Warner Brothers Discovery began discussions to sell slightly less than half of its movie and TV music catalog to a record label. Sony was identified as one of the frontrunners to get that. Company hopes to secure $500 million through that deal. Variety notes most of the music up for sale would be for themes and cues to shows and movies with a few conventional songs. This is all very interesting in light of Warner trying to cut back expenses and monetize its assets in preparation for a future sale, is my guess, a couple of years down the road, but not anytime soon. Also, all the companies are trying to cut back on their expenses as we reach saturation in the market for streaming and customers start to choose which ones they're actually going to spend their money on. Paramount Plus, for example, canceled several series and removed them from their streaming service to take that break on taxes that Warner and Disney have done in the past. So The Game, Grease, Rise of the Pink Ladies, Star Trek Prodigy. Season 2 will show somewhere else, will not be on Paramount. Queen of the Universe, all of those leaving Paramount. So Brian, your question then about these money-saving moves of these companies.
Well, I specifically, there are a couple of threads we can chase. Number one is the historical thread. I think a lot of people don't understand how in the before four times, many studios created content that was licensed to their competitors in the broadcast market. So many CBS productions.
We went through this whole process before, right? Where studios created shows for their new television channels in the 50s and then started creating shows for each other.
Yes. So that's one thread. Or part of me wants to dissect the strange 10-year interregnum where that stopped for a minute, and Netflix, being the vanguard of this movement, was trying to be I don't know, we'll make House of Cards, we'll make all of our own everythings. We hate that we're entangled with stars and have to pay them money or whatever. I don't know. Which thread would you like to chase? The weirdness of the fact of the last 10 years being different from the before four times, or
sure,
explain the before four times?
Well, let's start with explaining the before times, because a lot of people, I think we assume that everybody knows this, but a lot of people don't. The idea that a studio would make all its own content and put that content on its own platform has almost never been true. Movie studios, even back in the 20s, would rent their stars to each other. Even when the studio system owned the contracts on celebrities, they would loan them out. Studios would make a movie for another studio if they had an opening and the price was right. This has always been about a company going, hey, if we're not using what we've got, or if we don't have the right outlet to make the most of it, why don't we find somebody who does? So very quickly, as after television became mass popular in the 50s, studios figured out, oh, this show might not be right for CBS, but we could make it for NBC because NBC has the audience and the slot in its schedule that'll work for Star Trek, which showed on NBC, even though CBS made it. And Friends showed on NBC, even though Warner made it. There's all kinds of examples of those throughout history. And then the second part of it is syndication. We talk about like, hey, I can't believe they're taking that off the platform. Used to be, kids, back in the day, once a show was done, it left the platform forever. You could never find it again because the platform could only air one show at a time on its broadcast channel. But the reruns would go to different channels. Different channels would say, well, those aren't new, so they're not quite as valuable, but our audience will watch reruns of Brady Bunch, reruns of All in the Family, maybe in the afternoons on the weekdays or in the middle of the day on the weekends. So you had syndication. This is just streaming getting to that point, right?
And this is the part where in the before times, the magic number was 100 episodes, because at 100 episodes, you were eligible to even sell your show into syndication, and you didn't care who saw it when. And meanwhile, we're kind of seeing like a third generational wave, because there's a whole generation of folks who never experienced Friends, The Office, you name it, in prime time, but they did experience that as the thing that was on at 3:30 p.m. when they got home from school, that syndication, which made it valuable to the tune of like hundreds of millions of dollars to Netflix and so on, in order to keep people attracted to their platform.
Yeah, and so what we're seeing now is the streaming companies saying, well, what's the modern version of that? Because even though we just said we've had 10 years where that wasn't the case for streaming, it was still the case for streaming. Netflix has Seinfeld. Netflix didn't create Seinfeld. Netflix doesn't own Seinfeld. They're licensing it. There's tons of licensed content on all these platforms. It's just not the mega like flagship stuff. So we're getting to the point where some of the mega flagship stuff is probably going to have to be made off platform. And JSC 315 is saying, but if you own the studio platform and content, it makes no sense to take it off. And I would say, no, I get what they're doing. What Paramount and Disney and Max have all done when they took things off their platform was identify an inefficiency to say, for whatever reason, the users of our platform do not watch these shows in large numbers compared to other things on the platform. If Westworld was being watched in great numbers, they wouldn't have taken it off. So then they do the numbers and say, we can do this tax deduction. We can take a loss on it and say, we are no longer monetizing this on this platform. So we get a tax break on that platform's operations by saying, oh, that was a loss. It was its asset. Now it's not. And then you can make money off of it that you wouldn't be making on your platform by licensing it out. You have to be careful. You don't want to license out the best stuff to the other platforms, because then the other platform's getting an advantage. You want to keep your best stuff, the stuff that your audience loves, on your platform. But remember, not every platform has the exact same audience. So some of the stuff you have may not appeal to the people who like Max, but it might appeal to the people who like Pluto, or it might appeal to the people who like Netflix.
And I know this example, a lot of people already know it, but for example, Hacking the System, when it was a TV show on National Geographic, it was exclusive to them. That was the benefit that they were able to tout and so on. Then, did its season, it was done, it was over, went into the vault, came back as a Netflix original, exclusive. Netflix was able to say, nobody but us. That's the place for hacking the system. Same thing. Then with Prime, and then with Disney Plus, and now it's off Disney Plus, and who knows. But exclusivity matters is the important part.
And things are very different in a lot of ways. So these companies haven't been doing this as often because they didn't know what the good formula was. There was a great formula for decades where you're like, oh, I know that ABC has a little bit of a younger audience. CBS has a little bit of an older audience, and the cable channels break down like this. And then I can syndicate, so I can greenlight a show for CBS and then know that I can license it out to Bravo, and then I can sell DVDs of it. That model doesn't work anymore. So we're trying to figure out, like, okay, what's the new model of I'll greenlight it, I'll run it on my streaming platform. If it doesn't have a backtail, it's not going to keep being watched like something like The Office. Who's my platform that I can license it to later? And what's the equivalent of selling DVDs? I mean, you can actually sell DVDs still, or Blu-rays or whatever, but that's not nearly as big of a pile as it was. So I think licensing it out to Netflix is also filling in for that DVD residual money that you used to count on when you made a show too. And again, these aren't cable channels with a demo. These are audiences. So Netflix isn't equivalent to cable just because it has a big selection of stuff. It's equivalent to a website in that it's like, oh, we have these kinds of users. There's lots of different kinds, but there's these kinds. We don't have a lot of these kinds of users, so these shows don't do as well.
So would this be a fair metaphor? Like, neither of these exist, whatever. When you go to Toys R Us, there used to be a place called Toys R Us. Do you trust the toys there because they're at Toys R Us, or do you trust the toy because it's a Hasbro invention? That's the question that we're entering with our media in the next 10 years. Do we care about who made it, or do we trust who distributes it?
Yeah. And I think people are going to identify shows with distributors because they always have. People always thought of Friends as being an NBC show. Oh yeah, that's the time. Must-see TV on Thursday nights on NBC. Although now younger folks are like, well, what are you talking about? That's on Paramount Plus. That's a CBS show.
I think you're
we
right.
are shifting to distributors being the thing that people identify the show with, which is why people get so bent out of shape when a show moves. I mean, Westworld is available. It's not like it went away, but people are like, but it's an HBO show. It should be on the HBO distribution.
To be honest, this is where I would love Bryce's input because he's younger than us.
Well, in the Friends case, if a lot of these services will use these big tentpole franchises to bring people in. You saw it with Friends. You've seen it with Seinfeld. You saw it with The Office when Peacock was launching. And so when that stuff moves, or what seemed to be like the business proposition changes, then it's hard not to feel like, okay, well, am I chopped liver here? Like, I was paying for HBO to watch HBO programming, and now here's an HBO show I can't even watch on HBO, but I can go watch it over here with ads because I'm apparently not profitable enough, which just sours the whole experience. It's like, even like, I don't want to watch Westworld that bad, I guess, to sit through an ad. And that
apparently nobody was watching it before, or they would have kept it. I'm not accusing you of this particularly, but I think there
Bryce,
are a lot of people.
why weren't you watching Westworld enough?
No, I was the one when you weren't watching Westworld.
A lot of people are complaining about the principle of it, even though it hasn't affected them. It's like, man, I can't believe they've taken this show that I could have watched someday away, even though I never watched it and maybe never would have.
But people do have an opinion, and we are in a world of public opinions.
Yeah, and
that's why I wonder how that's going to mold stuff, Because right now, the opinion seems to be these platforms should be everything. If I'm on Max, it should be everything from Max. If it's on Netflix, it should be everything from Netflix. I wonder if that's going to cause the platforms to try to change to say, oh no, we're the geek's choice, or we're the sophisticated choice, or we're the, like right now they're all trying to be all things to all people, and they're running into this, which is like, you can't. And they're going to get mad at you when you violate that process, or when you violate that promise. So maybe you need to have an identity the way NBC, CBS, ABC, even though they were mass broadcasters, had these sort of colors to them in the past.
I'll tell you what, Tom, I actually perceive that there's a stealth winner out of all of this, because let me frame it this way. And by the way, cordkillers@gmail.com, please write us with your opinion. Imagine I told you I just saw the most excellent blank TV show, movie, whatever, what have you. You should watch it instantly. Tom, if you don't have the opportunity to ask me what's it on, where do you go?
Just watch.
Yes, that's exactly my point. I think they're the stealth winners in this war. In a war where we don't know if we trust the name Toys R Us or to trust the name Hasbro, the people in the middle, the people who disambiguate the question of just let me see the thing, are going to win. And I think it's going to be, if not specifically justwatch.com, something like it, or a competitor to it.
The platform that decides to mimic Just Watch, whether that's Apple TV or Roku or Fire TV, to the point where they say, look, we'll tell you where everything is, even if that app doesn't exist for our platform. We'll make it so you can find it. That platform is going to have an advantage. And a lot of the platforms will say, oh, well, we have everything almost. But they don't, because they're also still trying to work deals and take cuts and all of that. This is becoming a big enough problem that I think the ability to just say, hey, Shield TV, I want to watch Prodigy. And it says, hey, it doesn't say, oh, that used to be on Paramount. Sorry, it's moved. It just says, great, click here. You already have the service. Or click here. You can add the service for $4.99 a month. You do you. What do you want to do? That's going to be a huge advantage.
To be honest, I'm quite astonished that there are not more competitors to Just Watch. And again, we're not
Just
affiliated with them. No money is involved
watch.
here. Basically, they make money when you click on the button with the affiliate links or whatever. But I cannot believe that there's not multiple Just Watches out there.
Well, because Google has taken that space.
Yeah, I guess so.
People just type into Google.
They
where watch
type into
stream.
Google and Google.
Yeah,
Because
directs,
also, I just did a Just Watch and it would not tell me where The Witcher is. But Google
I
would
wouldn't tell you who The Witcher is?
Okay. It's The Flash. Maybe it's. So it only searched for the
Witcher?
Oh, okay, never mind.
Oh, did you misspell Witcher?
It only looked for the. Okay, never mind. That's on me. That one's on.
All right.
Just gets better.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go.
Because the other thing we're going to have to get used to is we have a lot of us. I'm going to say us because I'm part of this couple of generations that's like this, who are used to turning on cable TV and finding the show, right? Especially if you have a DVR, you just go to the DVR and you find it. We are now in a world where you have choice. You do not have to pay the full cable bill. You can choose what things you want to watch. And it's causing cognitive dissonance. People love the idea that they have control and they can decide what to pay for and cancel things and do things like I sign up for a show, I sign up for a service, I spend a month, I watch the show I want, and then I cancel the service. But that is more action on your part than the old model, which said, look, we're going to charge you $130 a month, whether you like all the stuff we have or not, but at least you don't have to think about it. And I think whoever can get as close to mimicking that while still giving you the control is going to win.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, this will be a good one to solicit responses from the listeners, cordkillers@gmail.com. So you have the creator experience, which is there's a story I want to tell that has never been told before. It's kind of like this, but with a top spin of whatever. That's the creator experience. There's the platform experience. Think Netflix. It's like, hey, we want to create an experience where it's astonishingly easy for you to just press one button and suddenly you have the stories that you've deeply wanted or whatever. But oftentimes overlooked is the customer experience. And I got to tell you, Tom, I think that Just Watch is in a very good position insofar as it disambiguates, like, I've heard about a thing, I want to know where the thing is. That's it.
Though the counter to that is just more marketing, right? Like if the reason people have to search for a thing, then maybe, and they still have to have heard the name to search it, but you still have to put something in front of people. People don't go to Just Watch to browse the way they do to a Netflix or a Hulu.
Correct. Yeah. But that's an interesting question. Is everybody decide right now if the three of us were to tell you about a new thing that we like very much, would you go to Google first or would you go to justwatch.com?
Right in. Ideally, we would have told them where they could go watch it, and then they would have heard us and remembered it. But not everyone remembers.
Well, ideally, we would have also used an affiliate code and made money.
I'm not sure about that. I still don't trust that.
I'm so glad you brought this up.
I think the ideal is I have sat down at my television, I have turned on my television, and I say, I want to watch the name of the show or a science fiction thing, and the thing you're watching, the television operating system goes, here's how to watch it.
Yes. However.
And we're close to that. We're incredibly close to that.
Yes. If only.
But what's the but?
You're all avoiding the big question. How does Cordkillers make money? We've been doing this for 10 years. We have not made $1 yet.
But I thought we did. I thought we made $1.
No, that would be counterfeiting. It would be illegal. So we didn't.
That's right. That's right. You showed me the felony charges we would be drawn up on.
Hypothetically, how might we make money on this endeavor?
We should never make money. You're right. But we have received money.
How did we do that?
We asked people and said, hey, you have got the show. We don't got the money. So if you like the show, give us the money.
You're hired, Tom. That's the best sales pitch I've ever heard. I'll tell you what. You go out there on the showroom floor, you keep giving that sales pitch, we'll make dollars upon dollars. Or
I don't do sales. I'm sorry.
This is why we're a good team. Hypothetically, alternatively, we could go to patreon.com/Cordkillers, where you get your own RSS feed, where you get exclusive access to our After Talk segment, where you get everything all at once earlier than everybody else. And most importantly, you get the smug satisfaction of knowing that you are keeping us loud, live, and independent. But your idea about just shrugging and waving your hands, that was pretty good too.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the everybody gets a trophy compliment. Now, listen, there could be a good reason why somebody would say, look, I really do like your show, but I can't support you on Patreon. We understand that.
If there is, I ain't heard it out loud, and most certainly ain't nobody written us it at cordkillers@gmail.com. I double dog dare you to name one good reason why anybody would cease to be a Patreon.
Mike tore his ACL.
Go on.
And he had to cover the surgery bill because no insurance. So, well, it wasn't Mike. It was Mike's dog.
His dog.
So if you're like, wait a minute, didn't he? Yeah. Dog tore the ACL.
Do dogs even have ACLs?
Yeah. Well, they have CCLs, actually, technically. They're canine cruciate ligaments. I know this because my dog tore one, and it's freaking expensive.
Okay.
So if you have a $6,000 surgery bill so that your dog can walk, I get it. That's okay.
look. I don't want to make this all about Mike and his dog's torn MCCP, whatever that was. Mike, you're forgiven. Everyone else, you got to pony up. I'm sorry. I hate to do this. God, I hate to do this. We're raising the fee. 1 penny.
What? Oh,
It's now 1 cent more. Used to be $1. Used to be $1.30. Used to be $1.35. I'm sorry, Tom. It is now $1.36 for every episodes of this show. And it's Mike's dog's fault.
Yeah. Blame the dog.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, also Russia.
And Russia.
Why not? Yes.
Yeah. Wagner.
Keep going.
Come on.
And also the South Pole. What's up with that?
Yeah. And crows.
And crows.
So if you are not Russia, you can be Russian, but you're not the actual country or a crow or Mike's dog. You have to support us at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
$1.36 an episode. It's all we're currently asking.
Thanks. We'll keep doing this until you do support us.
That's a threat. That's a threat.
Now who's the salesperson? Let's talk about how to watch. Netflix changed the way it measures viewership. So up until now, when you saw those Netflix rankings, they were done by hours viewed. They're continuing to do hours viewed, but they're changing the formula to try to make it more accurate. So they will divide hours viewed by the total runtime of a show. This will help shorter series rank higher. Netflix will still make total hours viewed available if you're like, I want to see what it would have been before the division. And Netflix will also expand the measurement window from 28 days to 91 days. They used to say like almost all of the viewing is done in the first 28 days, but they found that behaviors are starting to change. And so they're like, we need to expand this to account for some delayed viewing or people discovering a show, etc. Most of the rankings did not change much when they made this formula change, but a couple of shifts to note. Wednesday now ranks ahead of Stranger Things 4 as the most popular English language series of all time. Stranger Things was long. It was a long 13 hours. So Wednesday having the like sort of averaging of hours per episode helped them. Squid Game remains the most popular series ever. That didn't change. The Witcher and Queen's Gambit, though, bumped Lucifer and Inventing Anna out of the most popular list, though.
So let me pitch this to you. I'll pitch it first. I probably should take your temperature, but whatever. In the beginning, there was views, people who clicked a button to watch a thing. It did not distinguish between a 2-second video versus.
I think it was 2 minutes. As long as you got through 2 minutes, it would count as a view.
Right, and then. There was the evolution of viewer minutes, which unfortunately favored, your Alex Joneses, 4.5 hours of nonstop talking about Building 7 or whatever. To be honest, I actually really love this evolution. The idea that we add a third vector of people who press play with the intention of watching. And how long do they hang around? Because press play is a contract. Like, I understand what this thing is claiming to be. I want to watch the thing. And then measuring that against how much of it did you watch, it gets us closer to the movie experience. Because very rarely do you spend a lot of money, sit down. We talked about on the show, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I almost walked out of that movie, but I didn't because I was in a movie theater. If it was a YouTube video, no way I would have finished it, and no way would I have gotten to that awesome ending to that movie. I don't know. I like this.
Yeah, I do too. It's not important to rank high if you are a producer of a television show at Netflix. in minuscule, right? You do want your show to do well on the platform so that they want you to do more shows or more seasons of that show. But it's not like you make a whole lot more money if you rank in front of Stranger Things, right? However, if their compensation was tied directly to the rank, right? Like if you're number one, you get more. And I'm not ruling out the possibility that maybe that isn't in somebody's contract somewhere, but it doesn't seem to be. It would cause people to want Netflix to approve longer shows. They would say, well, if it's ranked by minutes, then we should have a lot of minutes in our season.
Right. And then suddenly they're licensing the, what is it, slow television, like 75 hours of a train going around or whatever.
As long as we can get people to watch the train, we'll do the 75-hour train thing. I mean, it has to be compelling enough to make people watch, but it's like, oh, if we can string them along for a longer period of time, that's more minutes, we'll rank higher. What this does is reflect more accurately. Well, that wouldn't really reflect what people like. It would just reflect the fact that you're making them watch more minutes, which actually could be a worse experience. So this says, look, if Wednesday's only 10 episodes, it shouldn't get dinged because Stranger Things was 13 and it had more minutes available to watch. Let's divide it per episode so that you actually can tell based on how long the season was per episode, people watch this many minutes. And I think that brings us closer to understanding what's actually more popular.
I think this is, in general, a good thing. The only exception I could think of is every so often there's a wonderful, wonderful surprise of a movie that is marketed as one thing or a TV show that is marketed as one thing, but turns out to be something else. Let's say The Good Place, marketed as a lighthearted comedy, secretly a deep college level dissection of Immanuel Kant. You know, it's those are the only ones that I worry about will get screwed out of this deal. But basically it's like, make a pitch, do a thing, and we're going to pay attention to how many people click play and whether or not you successfully get them to finish most of the movie, TV show, product, whatever.
And again, this is just telling the world, here's what's most popular. So there's less riding on it than if it was Nielsen ratings, right? So Netflix has all kinds of other internal measurements they use to decide whether to keep a show or not. It's not this. This is just, okay, how do we make sure that we're telling people the closest thing to what is the most popular? And I think that's cool. Let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
Not like real estate. It's all about location. Under surveillance.
Marie Donahue is VP of Global Sports Video at Amazon and spoke at Cannes Lion Advertising Conference, among other things, talking about Amazon's plan to tie its Black Friday sales into an NFL game that it will stream the same day. So Amazon has gotten some NFL rights. Amazon is going to use its relationship with the NFL to have a game on Friday after Thanksgiving in the US instead of just the two traditional games that are on Thursday on Thanksgiving. So those two will still happen. Don't worry about that. But there's going to be an Amazon game on Friday, and it's going to tie it into selling you things on Amazon for Amazon's Black Friday sales.
How do you feel about this, Tom? Because I have a thought.
It seems like a smart idea. I've got the rights. The NFL's okay with it. Players will play whatever day you tell them to play. There might be some reasons why they wouldn't want to do this, but the players play on holidays all the time. So this wouldn't be the first time that that's happened. It does make sense that you're going to have a lot of people sitting around on Friday with that day off, not going out to sales, maybe shopping on Amazon. Why not show them a show? And since you're showing them a show, then tie it into the thing you sell. What I don't know is if people are going to like this.
Well, I don't think they'll like the story of this, but I do think they'll like the experience of doing this, because ultimately all sales boils down to action. Clicking a button, doing a thing, joining a movement, whatever. I think people will enjoy doing it, but they don't like this kind of talk where they're crassly saying out loud that the thing that fuels the industry.
You don't love being sold to?
Exactly, right?
You don't love being marketed to?
Bryce, 100%.
Well,
yes.
okay,
you
but
get it.
Hold on. They didn't do a commercial on TV telling the mainstream audience, we're going to sell to you at Black Friday. They were speaking to at an advertising conference. I think they're allowed to speak about their strategy there. We're just reporting on it because we think it's of interest.
Yes. And also, I think everybody who hears about the speech will feel oogied out, but then they will love it when it actually happens.
When it happens.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the thing, is having football games on Thursday during Thanksgiving used to be a slightly controversial thing. I heard grumblings about it growing up, like, well, this is supposed to be for family, and you know, they're making these players play, and it took a while for people to turn it into a part of the tradition, which it is now. Now it is like, oh yeah, Thanksgiving, yeah, eat too much turkey and you watch football, like that. That's how people describe it quite often. I don't know if people are ready to add another football game to that weekend. And if they are, whether they'll treat it with the same reverence to the tradition. So, I mean, I guess it's fine. If as long as people are so excited about the NFL, they'll watch it. And if they're watching it, then Amazon can do a great job showing them sales and they'll buy it. It's probably going to work. But it does seem to be pushing it a little.
I suspect there's a little bit of a backwards creep where, let's say 10 years ago, if you had Thanksgiving dinner with your family, you would think, oh, I got to think about tomorrow and the Black Friday and all that stuff. Do I want to wake up early and all that stuff? Like, that's friction. And then you can eliminate that friction by making it digital. Great, you did that. Congrats. Then you think, well, we got to wake up tomorrow, got to click the buttons on the computer in the morning. Great, new friction. So now move it on to Thursday. I think everybody is going to like the experience but hate hearing about it.
What about the experience is better than if you just watch the football game with, say, the normal slate of ads, insurance and cars and whatnot?
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be that much difference, honestly. The new thing is that it's on Friday. There wasn't a game on Friday in the past. Yeah. So the new thing is it's going to be on Friday, and then it's going to tie its Black Friday sales into the games. So if anything, it'll just be more relevant commercials, right? It will be, instead of like, it's the Subway call to the bullpen, and you're like, man, that's the wrong sport. This is the NFL. Also, I'm not hungry for a sandwich.
You say relevant, I say creepy.
But that's the secret sauce here.
Yeah.
Let me back up and do the proper metaphor. It's the Subway Extra Point, and they're sponsoring the Extra Point. You're like, man, I don't need a sandwich. If it's the Amazon deal countdown, as we go into the 2-minute warning, for the next 2 minutes on Amazon, everything's 50% off, then I think that makes more sense. People are like, oh, that's something I could take advantage of right now because I'm already sitting here doing Black Friday sales. I think that stuff could work.
I honestly can't decide which I would prefer. So option one is the Subway countdown, right? 3, 2, 1, Subway. Versus some kind of highly targeted, like 3, 2, 1, Brian Brushwood, do you have a persistent cough? Are you asthmatic? Are you 48 years old? You should buy this.
That's better?
I don't know. I legitimately don't know, because one of them is actually useful to me.
Exactly.
The other is not.
Useful in that you can do commerce on it, but does solving your cough in the middle of a football game I don't know, because
useful in that you could do commerce on it means you get to buy a thing you need.
I legitimately don't know. I legitimately don't know.
Again, if it's done right, if you have a cough and you need to buy cough syrup, and the commercial says, hey, we're going to cut the cost of the cough syrup in half and deliver it to you right now, and you have a cough, you're going to be like, yeah, that that sounds great. Thank you.
I mean,
You're not going to
also,
say, no, that's dirty commerce. I'm not going to solve my cough.
Oh my gosh, I watched a football game and also it cured my cough. Or I watched a football game and they tried to sell me sandwiches.
Or maybe, or they knew the status of my throat.
I don't know. I legitimately don't know the right answer on this one.
It's the new Amazon choker. Just
it all comes down to, did you consent to how they found the information out, right? Because if you didn't, then they shouldn't know about your cough. But if you did, then it comes down to the presentation. If they do what Brian just said, like, hey, Brian, sounds like you have a cough, then yeah, I think we're all going to be creeped out. But if it's just like, hey, do you have a cough? For the next 2 minutes, there's a 50% discount and 1 hour delivery on cough medicine. Click here if you need it. Then yeah, that'll work.
Also, I'm definitely telling this story because I have found myself the victim of targeted ads about a persistent cough, and I found out recently that I have asthma. And maybe.
Oh, what? Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Say, how do you feel about it?
I don't know.
All right, let's move on to something that the conventional wisdom says is not going to happen. Gal Gadot playing Wonder Woman again. During Netflix's To Doom Festival, Entertainment Tonight asked Gal Gadot if she'd ever play Wonder Woman again, and she said the following: "Things are being worked behind the scenes, and once the right moment arrives, you'll know about it." So, while many have assumed that James Gunn is moving on without her after canceling the most recent Wonder Woman movie, Gadot is not saying, oh, I'll miss playing Wonder Woman. She's saying things are being worked on behind the scenes, and once the right moment arrives, you'll know about it. In fact, back in December on social media, she wrote, "Can't wait to share her next chapter with you," after the Wonder Woman movie got canceled. It has sounded to me this whole time, even though no one wants to believe it, that James Gunn would like to cast Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman again, just not in the movie that he decided to can.
Yes, and also not in the trajectory that the movie was part of a franchise on, and so on. Yeah. She's wonderful. Her portrayal of the character is wonderful. All of that tracks. That all makes sense to me.
And then Bryce, I think you were the one who found this one. HBO says The Idol will now wrap its season up after the 5th episode. It was originally supposed to be 6 episodes, and then the tease after this last episode was like on the season finale, and everyone said, "Hey, wait a minute, don't we have 2 more episodes?" TV Line source says the episode count was reduced after the change of directors. I believe we mentioned that before, but one of the other things that people have pointed to when they talk about how weird or disappointing The Idol has been is that they reshot the entire show after Amy Seimetz left mid-filming. And I believe the word is that they shot most of it at The Weeknd's house. So it's not the same show that it was when Amy Seimetz was directing it. And that could have been a 6-episode arc, and when they reshot it, it became a 5-episode arc.
So in an alternate universe, I would have had the time to type this down in the show prep doc, but have either of you guys heard about this multiple versions of Spider-Man across the universe?
Yes. We talked about that on Daily Tech News.
Yeah.
I've heard that's a rumor, but can you give me the elevator pitch on what it is?
Yeah, it's definitely confirmed. There are some places that are showing a version, minor tweaks, like Spider-Man 2099 is talking to his avatar, and the avatar, ends with like a snap point thing in one version, the other one, a selfie tweet or in the other. That's fascinating to me, specifically because the editor of the movie, upon seeing the chatter out there of people figuring out that stuff, he says, I was wondering when you guys would figure that out, which implies that there are even more changes. There are, accusations? I don't know what to say. But Spot says one version of dialogue in one version and another in another. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? The branching things, and will that upset you when you buy a Blu-ray, and whether or not it'll be one version or the other?
Well, I'm assuming the Blu-ray will give me, because Blu-ray has the capacity to do this, all the versions, and I can choose. And maybe that's when we'll find out just how many versions there were. The examples that I've seen have been incidental, right? Doing pointy fingers versus taking a selfie doesn't change the story in any way. So as long as it's kept to little things like that, the fact that it's also a movie about a multiverse where alternate realities are happening, I think it's kind of cool. That's kind of cute. It's like, yeah, even when you see the movie, there's a slightly alternate universe version of it, depending on where
it does buy you a lot of real estate. I remember back in 1999, there were some versions of the Phantom Menace that were shipped that I believe we're talking about film here, where they hadn't done the VFX, and so as a result, Darth Maul tumbles to his death, not chopped in half. And then others where he is chopped in half. Like, that was fairly significant. But little things like this seem fun and playful.
Yeah, I kind of like that too. All right, let's talk about what we've had our eyes on. Brian, what you been watching?
Oh my God, Tom, I saw Asteroid City. Have you seen this?
No, I have not seen it, but I know about it because it's Wes Anderson. Who doesn't love a Wes Anderson? So, what do you think?
Things that you think Wes Anderson is good at. List.
I was unprepared for that.
Okay.
Colors, casting Bill Murray.
Yes.
Really cool characters.
Yes.
Retro feels.
Yes.
With modern sensibilities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Among the list you just listed, plot was not among them.
No.
What if he did a movie where he just shrugged at the plot and put it behind the curtain of, I don't know, this is a movie about a play.
Yeah.
Shrug.
You don't come to me for plot. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yes. It's so good. Oh my God. Tom.
What is the good part of it?
All of it. All of it. Every aesthetic choice he makes, every color choice, every design choice, every framing choice, because it's a movie about a play that you never see the actual play of. Everybody is like, they march in and they exactly hit their mark and they give their dialogue and they look awesome the entire time. Also, I have no idea what it's about. It's great. It's great. Asteroid City, I'm going to see it 20 times. I'm so happy. It's the best thing ever.
I have talked about the doorways into books and movies and TV shows before. There's character, there's plot, there's writing style, there's setting. If your doorway into a story is plot, dude, you're not going to like a Wes Anderson movie. And you shouldn't feel bad about it. It's your doorway's plot. It's fine. But all the other doorways, the look, the writing, the characters, the setting, that sounds like they're all there at Asteroid City too.
And also the lyrical pacing. Oh my God, I laughed so many times where it's like there was just the right pregnant pause and then the release and all that stuff. Super, super good. Boy, did I love this movie. I love this movie so much. I want to marry it. I'm gonna leave my wife and I'm gonna marry Asteroid City.
I think you could take her with you to Asteroid. Yeah.
But then I worry about my wife distracting the asteroid from me, you know? And I kind of want Asteroid City's full attention.
Fair enough. Well, let me distract you by saying I like Barry again.
Tom, what are you doing? What are you doing?
So,
what are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm trying to tell you what I'm doing. My sister was visiting and she said, "Do you guys watch Barry?" And we said, "Yes, we watched Barry." We kind of fell off. We watched the first 2 episodes of this season, and it just we kind of forgot to go back. And my sister said, "Oh wait, you stopped at episode 2?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she said, "Just let me play. Let's watch episode 3." Like, all right, fine. Let's watch episode 3. Episode 3 finishes with a twist. If you have watched it, you know. And then episode 4 picks up from there. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting again. Yeah. All the stuff that they did back in the past, they literally killed a lot of it and just said, hey, what if we worked ourselves into a corner? What if we got out of that corner by doing this? And I loved it. So I'm back to enjoying Barry.
Tom, you know I trust you, right?
I do.
And you know you're messing with me right now, right?
I'm not trying to, but yes, I know.
Okay. All right.
I say, just watch episode 3, and then decide. Don't bother watching episodes 1 and 2. Just watch episode 3, and then decide. If
I watched the finale.
You want to watch at all, I'm just saying, if you were tempted and you're like, man, okay, fine, that's what I would do.
Wait, I watched just the finale of this, and it was all right. For someone who didn't really know much of anything.
Maybe I haven't got to the finale yet, so maybe if I got to the finale, I'd agree with Bryce. Maybe that might be the move too. I don't know.
It certainly didn't remind me of the first episodes of Barry that I watched and hated. I hated the show. I don't like the show. That first episode, just not for me. But that finale was fine. That finale seemed pretty good. As someone who doesn't know the show. And nobody else watched it.
You can hear Brian squinting at us. It's amazing.
Sorry. Sorry.
Like
I'm a crusty old rusted automaton who squints.
Oil can.
Would you like to play whist, child?
Can I ask stuff? All right. You are on the lookout for something I'm on the lookout for too, Bryce. What is it?
That's right. The Bear season 2 is back now on Hulu. They got 10 episodes. They're a bit variable length. They're 30. There's one that's like a solid 60, but they kind of fluctuate a little bit. So last season, Carmi took over the beef from his late brother, and it was very tough. He was trying to fit in, trying to understand all the people that were there, the way that it was working, and to see if he could make it work. And the end of that season is pretty dramatic, and they set the stage for this new season where they are preparing to build the Bear, a fine dining restaurant compared to the old sandwich shop that it had been. And there you do see cooking, but it's a lot of like... This is very much a season about character development. By the end of it, you can go over the entire ensemble cast and go, oh yeah, kind of everyone really grew in a different, interesting way. And so it was a little less heavy than some. First season had some heavy stuff, especially with the brother, and where this is a little lighter. And I just think it's great. Like they dropped all 10 episodes at once on Hulu. And it's very bingeable. That's great. Tom, you watched the first season of The Bear, right?
I did, yeah. And we've been meaning to watch the second, but we just haven't got the time to do it. And we're planning on doing it this week. So
yeah.
Should
it's good to know that it's not quite as heavy as season 1, because that was the one thing I was saying is like, okay, we have to be in the mood. Like this is not a fun pick me up show, which I don't expect it will be, but it's good to know that it may not be as heavy as I was fearing.
Season 1 was fantastic for the first 5 episodes before I stopped watching. When it clearly became all too real about a person who loses his brother to alcoholism, and at which point I peaced out. But Bryce, should I maybe just jump in at the beginning of season 2?
Maybe you watch the last episode of season 1 just to get you into the headspace of like what the last thing that just happened, because if you missed that, you might be like, well, but I think that might be a way to, because that's what I ended up doing, is I ended up watching the last episode right before watching the new one, and it just goes right in. It's really solid. I thought that, especially as someone who isn't in a creative field, I thought that this really reflected a lot of like conflicts and issues that happen in something that should be a perfect recipe, but there's always a human element to everything.
So you're somebody who's not in a creative field.
What?
As an editor, producer.
I just said I was in a creative.
Who? Sorry, it sounded like isn't. I misheard you.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And so
All right.
there are some heavy moments. Episode 6 is a long one, and it's kind of heavy, but also star-studded. Hey, a little bit of star-studded on it.
And that doesn't distract. That was the other thing I was worried about.
It doesn't, because
good.
It doesn't. There's a whole reason for it, and it works really, really well. So The Bear season 2, it's great, and they seem to be setting up for a 3rd season, which I would be really, really into, because there's there's this phase of the story, and now we have another phase.
I would imagine, if I were to guess from 1,000 feet away and somebody who only watched the first half of the first season, I would imagine the first season is about the sandwich shop. The second season is about making it the best version of it. The third season would be about franchising and expanding to a wider audience, I would imagine.
Interesting. That's bigger. That's incorrect, and probably bigger than I would think. The arc has gone so far and would go next.
I look forward to diving in.
Yeah. It's like Supernova Girl asks, is there a reason for these cameos? There's a fantastic reason why they show up one time and don't show up again. It's great. Even those cameos are like really, really well thought out. Also, a lot of music, like a ton of like big licensed music cues. It just makes it feel really... I don't know. You get some real good when you have what's that Taylor Swift, that Love Story song by Taylor Swift is playing, and just it comes at the end. And you're like, oh yes, okay, sure, yes, I'm into it. So it's on Hulu now. In other regions, it might be on Disney or Hotstar. Check something like Google or Just Watch for that. If you've got something we should be on the lookout for, please email it to us, cordkillers@gmail.com. Thank you.
It's a good thing I don't live in Austin, Brian.
Oh my God. I was just thinking, my wife and I were talking, and I was like, my favorite thing about Austin? Tom doesn't live here.
Yeah, no, because if I lived in Austin, I would be demanding for you to do one of your shows in front of everyone so that I could enjoy all their faces reacting to you.
And I would say to you, Tom, hypothetically, if this were true, I would say, Tom, there's one thing I value more than anything else. It's my cowardice. It's my ability to sit in a private little island all the way off outside of the Austin city limits and do my comedy show along with Justin Robert Young and Bryce Castillo and Brett and the whole nine yards without ever having to subject myself to the judgment of other people. And Tom, I know you might say, Brian, I don't know, it seems to me like you're definitely practicing to take a show on the road. Seems to me like you might want to practice actually doing it downtown. And I would say to you, Tom, name one venue that's super famous in Austin that we should do Great Night at. And you might say Captain Quack's. And I'd be like, well, that's a good one. And then you might say, if only you could have a ticket platform, and if only you could encourage everybody to go to Gigstan, GIGSTAN.com, and sign up and pay us $20 so you can see me and Justin Robert Young and Andrew Heaton and Bryce and do
Mike
a live
TV.
show and Mike TV,
Yeah.
music, comedy,
That's
the whole
trivia.
9 yards.
Yeah.
And then I'd say, good job, Tom. You just did this whole ad segment.
Good job, Tom.
Man, I really wish
Great
I
night.
lived in Austin, though.
Eh.
You're not missing them. You're just missing the show. Check out the Gigstand app, please.
Gigstand.com. Go check it out. Great night live in Austin. Soundspace at Captain Quacks. And you'll need a computer to buy the ticket. How are they going to do that, Brian?
Doghousesystems.com/rogue. ROGUE. Spell it right. Give them money. You're not giving us anything. We've received no money.
And you get a thing.
Yeah.
Free SSD. Let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines.
If you've been wondering why there are two basic plans for Netflix, well, if you're Canadian, there's not. Netflix is removing its $9.99 a month basic plan without ads in Canada, making the basic plan with ads at $5.99 the cheapest. That is your entry level. It was always the cheapest, but it's now the only basic plan. Customers on the basic plan will get to keep it. So if you're on that $9.99, don't cancel because you can hold on to it. But if you're a new customer or if you're canceling, you will not be able to sign up for that $9.99 plan. You'll only be able to get either the $5.99 or the more expensive medium plan. So there you go. Canadians, be careful when you cancel your Netflix.
Canadians. Is it fair to say, please nobody freak out about any of these small changes, because that's the way A/B testing works, is you pick a market and you flip switches and you see what happens.
Though,
Yeah.
with Canada, they were not an A/B market. They were just, we're going to do the ad plan here first, This will be our first English language ad plan, and this is going to come. We knew this was coming to the U.S. And honestly, this makes a bunch of sense to bring it to the U.S. because right now the basic without ads and the basic with ads plan are too similarly priced. And for Netflix, if you were watching ads, you're way more valuable than the guy who's paying a couple of extra bucks to not watch any ads. It's just inevitable. I don't even think it's A/B. It's happening.
I hadn't really thought about that. Like
because they even hide that basic
person
plan.
Who's on your platform, who also watches ads, like who knows what that person is worth?
Netflix does, and they know they're more valuable because they've been doing it for 3 months now.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good news, YouTube TV expanded its multi-view to include news, business, and weather programming. It launched only for sports. The app gives you pre-selected multi-view groupings. You don't get to customize them. And that's not the bad news. The bad news is that SNY, the regional sports net the New York Mets baseball game, is no longer available on YouTube TV. I'm sorry, I'm obsessed with the idea of like a Leatherface going like, the New York Mets now, because I said scaries.
Another regional sports net drops off of YouTube TV, which I'm not even sure at this point whether that's worse for YouTube TV or the regional sports net, but it's bad for Mets fans who want to subscribe through YouTube TV, I guess.
What it's bad for is consumers, because the one thing you want to avoid is confusion. And now we have confusion. Like YouTube, are you in or are you out? What's happening here?
The U.S. FCC has proposed a new rule that would require cable and satellite TV providers to give consumers an all-in price for their services rather than advertising their price before fees. Next, price transparency for buggy whips.
Well, I think there may be... This is a weird move from the FCC because I was always confused why... by law, gas stations are prohibited from displaying their gas prices and then saying plus tax. Or cigarettes. Like, you're not allowed to say cigarettes are 99 cents plus tax, and then the tax is $8 or what have you.
And if people were increasingly shopping for cable and satellite TV as they were 10 years ago, be right there with you. But it's sort of like, great, good job adding this rule. Too late for most people to benefit.
Yeah. Disney objects to language in a draft UK law that would require streamers to send a reminder to customers every 6 months that they're still subscribed. There's also a provision that would let consumers change their mind up to 14 days after subscribing without having to pay. Good job, Disney. Turns out when you subscribe to a thing, as somebody who's offering subscriptions, I think you should subscribe to it.
Yeah, I get why Disney doesn't want either of these. Obviously, reminding customers every 6 months that they're still subscribed is just paperwork that they don't want to have to show compliance with, and it's a minor cost. The provision that would let consumers change their mind up to 14 days after subscribing is a valid concern. That is a thing where people will game that system. They'll wait till Secret Invasion is done. They'll sign up. They'll watch all of Secret Invasion, and then they'll cancel 14 days later and not have to pay a penny. I get them objecting to that part.
I suspect that they either already have or should have a provision that is exactly that. I
mean, how many credit cards are you going to go through, right? Like, presumably they will be able to lock that down.
You can only do with trial. You can still limit the number of trials, but a lot of people are going to do this, and they're going to lose a few pennies here.
Yeah,
and there.
the requiring them by law to send out a press release that will cause them to shed 10% of their subscribers every single time they press that button. That doesn't sound great. I mean, that's what a subscription is.
But we have talked about on this show how it would be good if a streamer did let you know, hey, reminded you. That would be
from the subscriber's point of view, yes. Cancel everything every 3 months. That's my full-throated recommendation. However, being legally obligated to send an email to remind people of the Brian diktat, I'm not a fan of, as somebody who intends to sell subscriptions.
Yeah, I'm also curious on what the provisions on this 14-day thing, because it's not a 14-day free trial. It's saying you have up to 2 weeks to change your mind and get your money back. And I don't know how many times you can get away with doing it. PwC published analysis that the TV industry will get $30 billion less annually from subscription and advertising by 2027 than it gets now. That's right, TV industry. By that year, PwC estimates only 38% of U.S. homes will pay for traditional cable or satellite service. Revenue from over-the-top streaming services will fill the gap. So when they say TV industry, they're talking about the traditional industry. This is all just saying the money is shifting from cable and satellite to over-the-top.
Tom,
AKA
I'm beginning to feel like we've won the cord-killing wars.
It almost feels like there aren't that many cords left to kill.
If only there was an after-talk segment where we could talk about what comes next.
There was.
The Academy has added qualifications in order to be considered for the Best Picture. The old rules required at least a once-a-week release in one of 6 U.S. cities. The new rules require a 7-day run. They can be non-consecutive in 10 of the top 50 U.S. markets no later than 45 days after initial release. Non-U.S. territories can count towards one of the 10 locations as long as they're in the top 15 international theatrical markets, as well as the home market for the film. Boy, oh boy, what a time to make more rules while everybody's on strike. That's my one coupon.
Yeah, I don't think this has anything to do with, not everything has to do with the strike just because it's happening while there's a strike.
I'm just going to say, weird time to be pedantic on this kind of stuff.
Oh, no, they're changing this rule because of Netflix. They're looking at all of these streaming services and they're saying, listen, we need to make sure that these are really being seen in theaters. So let's increase let's make it harder for them. They can't just put it in one theater for a week in Los Angeles. They've got to have multiple cities. They've got to make it available. That's exactly what this is about.
And to be honest, I'm there for the spirit of what they're doing. I'm not there for the timing or the specifics. You know how I am about Hollywood awards. Hooray for Hollywood, whatever.
All right, let's get to the dispatches from the front. Now, we mentioned last week on the main show, and we've talked about on After Talk a couple of times, that we're thinking of sort of changing the atmosphere on Cordkillers from being we're fighting the revolution to like, hey, maybe the revolution is over. So now we're in this wasteland where, you know, it's just all wreckage from the fight that destroyed cable. And we've been talking about new names for segments, maybe a subtitle for Cordkillers. We're obviously not going to change the name of the show. It'll still be called Cordkillers. But William suggested Cordkillers Fallout. Do you think we can get away with that one?
Let me give a call to Ted Zenimax
at Microsoft. Hey, Ted. And then kind of thinking of the After the Revolution theme, David came up with Cordkillers Fallout also, with new names for the parts of the show. Primary target would become the bomb or the nuke. Frontlines becomes the vault, or promoted or nuked. Dispatches from the front becomes communiques, and After Talk Area 51 or sillier Area 52.
I do like communiques. The only thing, like in general, all humans tend to enjoy things that are positive, you know, forward looking. Like that's part of the reason that we called the show Cordkillers, is so we could be like, we have a mission, we're going to kill the cords and so on. Many of these segment titles sound sad to me.
Yeah. I like streaming Survivors, which is what Andy said he likes too, because it's more positive. It's like, we survived the revolution, and now we're trying to make sense of it all in this new world. Andy says, my brain immediately went to one of the sections being shiny and chrome. I will continue to witness you in this new era.
Yes, no, shiny and chrome absolutely must be a segment that we do.
That would be good for the emails, right? We witness you, shiny and chrome.
There was another email, I think, outside of the Cordkillers ecosystem, where somebody had suggested Reckoning, which I thought was good, or Reckoning, or Aftermath, or Rebirth, or Next Level, whatever.
Hello to the streaming survivors who have survived Cordkillers Reckoning.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Keep those thoughts coming, folks. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. Our website is cordkillers.com. We're live, twitch.tv/Night Attack, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll talk to you next week.
Hey, Tom Merritt, what's going on?
I'm just hanging out here watching this scroll go by. What are you doing?
Trying to set up a bit where we thank our beautiful, beautiful patrons, all these wonderful names.
I'm sorry, I'm too distracted looking at these beautiful, beautiful patron names going by. Look at that one. I mean, if you wanted to be one of these people, patreon.com/cordkillers would be the place to go.
I mean, they're scratching our itch, like, because we're addicted.
As long as it's consensual, like,
we're addicted to their money.
And love. Might as well face it.
Well, God damn it.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.